It's Waxing Lyrical, baby.
Hello, Waxers, and welcome to Waxing Lyrical with Mains and Dutts. I'm your host, Mains, and my colleague who just worked out he could play the 15th at Augusta better than Sergio Garcia. It's Mr. Neil Dutton. How are we, Neil?
I remember watching playing in a game actually once with a bowler who got the yips mid-over, and it was one of those. It was like, oh please, batsman, do something to help him end this over. And unfortunately, it was one of those. It was like, even if it was going to be a batsman like running down the track to hit it or racing to the left, it was Parky. So you know Parky, the thoroughly decent bloke he is not going to take advantage of anyone. So he's just going to let him keep bowling. It was like, no, it's a mercy killing, please. That was what it was like, just like watching Sergio.
He just scored 13 on the par 5 15th. Ironically, after the last time he played it on the Sunday when he won, he scored a 3. The way the world. Although the opposite of that, don't I assume, is Philadelphia Eagle head coach Doug Peterson throwing a strike in a Phillies home game in a Roy Halladay t-shirt.
However, just looking at it and looking at the pace of said pitch, it would have gone.
It would have been not long for this land.
Yeah, it might, had it landed, it may have caused the earthquake they've just experienced on the in California.
Exactly right, exactly. Dutton, interview heavy this week. We have Liz Loza, fancy football analyst to me, you and the Waxers, Olympic analyst to everybody on Yahoo. She'll talk us through fantasy stuff and talk us through how she enjoyed South Korea. And then Dutton, we've gone heavy, hard, business style with Mr. Andrew Brandt, who's talking so many trades, what's going on, and his big news of him basically owning Philadelphia, as he's been linked to the Eagles and Villanova, and therefore is taking full credit, I assume.
And also, instructing the ECB to give him a call.
Why not? As he should do, Neil, because let's be brutally honest. I don't know how much Andrew knows about cricket, but he probably, by knowing nothing, he probably is in a better position to running English cricket than the guys who are running it at the moment.
He certainly wouldn't be losing out by knowing nothing.
Yeah, exactly. It's not an issue to be non-knowledgeable.
Do you know? Just talking about people who know nothing.
Well, we're on the show. Carry on.
Yeah, Mr. Kelly did send out a YouTube video, and it contained like a clip of our conversation when I was on the Sonic Truth. When I was on the Roto Underworld radio show. Now, I don't know about you, but I listen to podcasts at twice speed.
No, so I listen to it normal, so I'm fine. So you're working out that our voices change, yeah?
Yeah, and I honestly don't know. A big thank you to the 3 people who've downloaded this to listen. I don't know how any of you can listen to my voice in its current speed.
The question you've got to ask yourself, Dutton, is that is a very true statement, and I've been putting off it with that voice talking at me since 2002. 2001? 2001, yeah, Cup Kings, 2001, of course it was. Let's not talk about footy, because then, there might be an atmosphere that people will ignore. I'm lost in a daze of Anfield glory. Let's move on. Let's talk to Liz about fantasy football, the draft pick quarterbacks for this year, and to start with, let's find out how she enjoyed Pyeongchang and the ice dancing in the Winter Olympics.
Hang on a sec.
And joining us now on Waxing Lyrical, it's great to have back on Liz Loza, fantasy football analyst, and now Olympic analyst for Yahoo. Liz, how are we?
The royal we are doing wonderfully. How are you guys?
We are good, thank you. We are good. I mean, let's just get straight onto it. We're going to talk about a lot of football, but we're interested in Pyeongchang and the Winter Olympics. How was it?
It's fantastic. I mean, the Americans didn't do that well, but I would argue that leadership comes from the top, and so perhaps they were not inspired to give their A game. I'm just saying, maybe. But otherwise, it was fantastic to be a part of it. I covered particularly the figure skating. So I had a feature with Adam Rapon 2 weeks before he left for Pyeongchang, actually just a couple of days before Super Bowl week, which we were able to put together and had an excellent time doing. And Nathan Chen was part of that. I thought those events were exciting. I think probably one of my favorite moments was the American ladies versus the Canadian ladies hockey gold medal tournament. That was one of the most thrilling sporting events I've ever been fortunate enough to witness. So I don't know what y'all did. I don't know what the Brits did. I'm be honest, because
I mean, we don't deal well with weather. I think we were just talking about this kind of offline. So we kind of have no snow, no heat, basically rains all the time. Yeah. So we're, bang average at like hot sports. You never catch an Olympic gold medal in like beach volleyball, and there's absolutely no way you're catching us doing skiing. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just not going to work. And we used to be good at figure skating, I guess, Torval and Dean, but we now just focus that. I don't know if you know, we got like a reality TV version of this. So like Strictly Come Dancing kind of idea. I can't remember what it's called. Dancing with the Stars in America, right? We've got Dancing on Ice. So Torval and Dean are judges while celebrity fools fall on their backsides with a semi-professional figure skater.
Celebrity in the very loose sense of it. It probably was a celebrity in season 1. We're on about season 10 now. So if you once walked past the camera while the guy was doing the news behind you, I think you're now a celebrity and you can go on Dancing on Ice. It's me and you, basically, next series.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it.
They had that. That's a BBC produced show because they tried it in America, and my girlfriend Carol Turner is an exec at BBC, and it did not do well in the States. But I think that's because it requires more technique, and we're just a bunch of lazy Kim Kardashian wannabes, period.
Yeah, but I mean, you say that though, but the people who we have on that show are people who want to be Kim Kardashian. So they're all our reality star version of Kim Kardashian. So it also shocks me that some dude who's in, The Only Way is Essex, please don't Google, you may lose your soul, or Made in Chelsea, even worse, that you can find out how the posh people live. Daddy bought me a Bentley for Christmas, and I didn't like it because it was in white and not blue. Don't abuse Desperate Scousewives. Don't know when to school with one of those girls. Embarrassing for me. So it's not. I would expect us to be really bad at that, but we're not, and we've absolutely dived into the world of reality TV, which I despise.
But the thing is, as Liz says, it's an export that's not done particularly well. Whereas, as I spoke to Josh Norris a couple of months ago, and we ended talking about the Great British Bake Off, which obviously the whole of America love.
Yeah, we love your scones, man. Put some clotted cream up on one of those, and shit, you've got Americans going nuts.
Just make sure that we, for the story that me and Neil did a couple of weeks ago, you've got to go clotted cream. And then jam, not jam and clotted cream. Otherwise, there'll be some kinds of. And this is no word of a lie. There was like a Twitter meltdown from one half of the UK because some dude tweeted on a national trust site that he put, and he showed a picture with it the wrong way round, and they were nearly like boycotting a whole, like basically Yosemite. And I was like, these people need to get a life.
It was the Montague and the Capulets times 10.
Yeah. But wait, one more thing. I know scones are big, but I think the best thing about British food is your curries. Like late night, also something called Aftershock I discovered when I was in England. That was amazing.
Was it red or
red? The pink one, yeah. The pink one, yeah.
It was red. Some Aftershock and some curries. And then in the morning, you hit up those buttery scones with the clotted cream and then the jam. And you don't mess with the apricot. You just go straight for some berry jam.
I love the fact that our best export, according to Liz, is a food that comes from India.
True.
But I understand what you're saying totally, because it is our national food now is a curry, which is not English in any way, shape, or form. But
tacos are American, right? Tacos exactly, are our version of that.
Exactly, absolutely.
There is a Taco Bell in Liverpool now, by the way.
Yeah, I know, yeah. I haven't been yet.
Taco Bell's disgusting.
Yeah,
Dark
that's as how as we've got in Taco World.
Yeah. Liz, you mentioned this actually when we were arranged for you to come on, but a few years ago I asked, I was doing a feature, I was asking several prominent people, what could Santa Claus bring to your NFL team? And your answer was a new quarterback and an offensive-minded coach. Now, this has happened, but you've now moved somewhat on to, you found another NFL, paramour. So, obviously it's a bit late. Has what the Bears done, is it enough to bring you back to that side, or are you now Rams for life?
So here's the deal. So the Bears have my attention, but it's sort of like, I know both of you are married and settled. Congratulations, Paul, by the way, on your recent nuptials, which should have happened years ago, but you did it. So great. It's like when you, let's say you go to a high school reunion or a college reunion, and there's that ex, and this ex, and the way that ex smells, and the way he or she dresses, and you're just sort of, there's some comfort about there, right? And you're like, I could just get back into this, and I could know all of the places and all of the things, and we could just make magic 5% of the time. But that's a guarantee, 5% of the time it's going to be good. The rest of the time, it's a disaster. But gosh, that 5% is so secure. When you move, I don't know, I'm not quite sure. I'm excited for the fan base. I'm excited that the franchise, which is a historic franchise, is finally doing something progressive. I love that the youth movement, Matt Nagy actually just turned 40, I think last week or so. I love that the youth movement has hit the Midwest finally. Here's the thing. I grew up in Chicago. I moved to Los Angeles. I've been to Los Angeles for over a decade, for nearly 15 years. Both of my children were born in Los Angeles. I got married in Los Angeles. I pay property taxes in Los Angeles. The Rams now have a team. We have season tickets. Well, we do until they get their new stadium, because then we can't afford the seat license. But for the time being, we have season tickets. And I feel like there was no football team before now. My husband is a Washington Redskins fan, so it was an easy, seamless. I hosted the draft in Chicago, my hometown, when the Rams took Jared Goff #1 overall. He was my #1 ranked quarterback. As a Redskins fan for my husband, Sean McVay moving over, there were just so many pieces in place for us not to be bandwagon feeling. We've been watching this team since their Los Angeles reboot, and my kids are Rams fans in as much as a 1-year-old, a 4-year-old can be football fans. And so I just feel like this is it. This is my new team, and I understand that they did well, and they made some big splashy free agency moves, which actually worry me a little bit, because I feel like we're getting a tiny bit Hollywood, and the egos here are going to be an interesting mix in that locker room. If Sammy Watkins was too much ego for you all, you're going to pair Sue, who, by the way, is not a perfect scheme fit, but we're going to trust in son of a bum, Wade Phillips, right? Then what's that going to look like? But I'm excited for the Bears. It's here's the thing. If you have an amicable divorce, can I say it? If you have an amicable divorce, and there's really no hard feelings, you all just grew apart, right? You got married young. You didn't have any kids together, so there's no assets to divvy up. You wish that person well. You see that person going on in their lives, and you're like, yeah, thank you for the time you were a part of me. I learned from you, and I wish you well. And that's sort of how I feel about the Bears. I'm excited for them, excited for my friends who are lifelong Bears fans. But I got my own boo now, and we're cool.
So I think it was a bit like, sorry, mate, it's just a bit like, the Batman Begins, the first one with Christian Bale, where at the end of it, Rachel Dawes says to him, one day when Batman isn't here, we'll be together then. And then in the next film, Bruce is still clinging to that, but Rachel's already moved on. The Bears, maybe thought, we'll get together again once your work in LA is done. But no, it's gone. The Bears, they were pursuing a false dream.
Although, I mean, if Christian Bale were to quarterback the Bears, I might be down for a switch. Right? Like I could hang with some like 2-a-days shirtless Christian Bale on his Instagram. That's all right.
As long as he's like Batman Christian Bale and not mechanic Nickel Bale, where he like had no, just like was just bones.
Did you see the Dick Cheney one? He gained 120
Oh yeah, he gained 120 pounds, became fat Christian Bale. Good work.
Yeah,
no. I want American Psycho Christian Bale.
You want American Psycho Christian Bale? That's fair enough. Yeah. As long as he doesn't chase you down the stairs with a chainsaw.
Sure. Yeah.
So on the Bears, you talk the 5% still in love with the 95%, and me and Neil have been waiting, searching the news feeds, checking out. It's 9:15 here in the UK on the Thursday, the 5th of April, waiting for that move that's going to annoy a bunch of Bears fans, and that's Jordan Howard. It hasn't happened yet. Do we expect Jordan Howard to be traded, and if so, what does that mean for Jordan Howard? Is there any team as a fantasy person you'd want him to go to?
Well, it's hard to want to project his landing spots ahead of the 2018 NFL draft, right? Because this draft has a lot of solid rookie talent. Everyone's talking about Saquon Barkley, obviously. So I don't want to project that now because I feel like it would be a shame for the Bears to draft him unless they're planning on replacing him with somebody that Nagy handpicks, right? So if Nagy handpicks someone, then I'm going to like that guy because Nagy knows what he's doing. We saw what he was able to do in Kansas City with Kareem Hunt after the plateau. I do think the biggest problem with Jordan Howard is obviously his hands. Like he has got to get better at catching and securing the football. And Nagy obviously likes a running back that can catch out of the backfield. And so, you know, if Jordan Howard can't elevate that portion of his game, he is going to disintegrate because he's also a player who does not shy away from contact. And there's only so much the human body can withstand I see him just sort of becoming a less imaginative, like the Adrian Peterson style backs don't exist in the NFL. Those power rushers don't exist in the NFL anymore. The game has evolved beyond that. And so I feel like if Jordan Howard can't evolve that piece of his game, then he's going to, it's hard to say like devolve into Adrian Peterson, but I think you know what I'm saying here.
Mm-hmm. As I say, for the, if we don't want to go Adrian Peterson, because, we don't want to paint him in too good a light, but Chris Ivory, something like that. A more than useful runner, but if it comes to being in the receiving game, you may as well just throw it out of bounds.
Well, like Chris Ivory 3 years ago.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, right? You don't want a player who's in the backfield and everyone goes, oh, look, they're going to run this play. Do you know why I know they're going to run this play? Because I've seen him try and catch, and he's got baseball gloves on, and both hands the wrong way round.
Like, I'm not comping him to Alfred Morris, but if you look at skill sets, then there is some concerning overlap.
A few years ago, I was playing Madden. This is relevant. No, I was playing Madden, and I was playing against the Washington Redskins. And one game, Alfred Morris caught a pass and went 66 yards. I turned the PlayStation off because I'm just not prepared to deal with that level of fantasy, because that's just totally unrealistic and would not happen.
Yeah. Not going to happen. I will say for the Bears, though, I want people to keep an eye. Two things about their free agency moves. I do want them to keep an eye on Tariq Cohen, because let's assume Jordan Howard is as he is and he stays with the team. And we know what Nagy did last season with Tyreek Hill and the gadgety ways he used them. Yes, Taylor Gabriel is on the squad now, so that might eat into some of it. But, God, we've seen the human joystick, as he's nicknamed, do some amazing things. And now that he has a creatively minded coach who's just begun to scratch the surface with what he was able to do in Kansas City last year, with the wide receivers coming out of the backfield, and he has other receivers beyond his stud tight end, I feel like Tariq Cohen is going to be the greatest value on that squad. And everybody's giving all of their attention to Trey Burton because they're making the Travis Kelce parallel. But Adam Shaheen this time last year was on the top of everybody's sleeper board, and he is not a tight end known for his blocking. He's a tight end known for being a pass catcher. So I'm not 100% sure that Trey Burton is automatically, yes, I know Nagy said that he's assuming he's going to be the Travis Kelce. He's going to own the Travis Kelce role in the Bears offense next season. But I don't know. Have coaches ever lied? Like, I'm
not sure.
Well, I'm wondering. Right, so like we know Adam Shaheen is there. They could run a lot of 2 tight end sets, but I don't think it's going to be as consistent production for Trey Burton as everybody is assuming. And I think his draft stock, it's going to be he's going to be at peak value. Like, you are going to draft him, and if he dips a little bit in production, you're not going to get your return on investment on him, in my estimation. As for like Allen Robinson, I love that signing, but I got to be careful about the hype train, because something we learned last year, remember when Brandon Cooks, who we should probably talk about as well, but when Brandon Cooks was traded from New Orleans to the Patriots, everyone's like, oh, the Patriots have a number 1 receiver. And that happened, but like after October, right? Like we saw flashes of it, because evolution takes time. Even if you believe the dinosaurs didn't effing exist, evolution still takes time. And we've got a new coordinator. We've got new pieces. We have a young quarterback that we're hoping this offensive mind can bring along. But there's no guarantee that he's going to Sean McVay it. We just think recency bias that it's probably going to happen because that's the comp most recently in our brains. There's no guarantee, though. So don't pay that money for it, is my thought.
I think it was Matt Kelly who did point out that Trey Burton will probably do an awful lot of work from the Bears' own 20-yard line until they get to the red zone, because he's 6'3", he's 230 pounds. He's not, as say Travis Kelce, he's given up, was it 2 inches and about 35 pounds?
Yeah.
That's when Shaheen and even Deion Sims are going to come in, and that will put a cap on Trey Burton's fancy value if he's not going to get the red zone looks.
I think that's it. I think that's an excellent point, and I agree with Matt Kelly. I often do, actually. He's a colleague.
I know, that's why I put that way. That's why I dropped his name in, even though he did think I was Irish. For some reason, I was on the Rote Wonderworld pod a few weeks ago with him, and his big lead-up in was how I was following on from another Irishman, Colm Kelly, and how I needed to do a better job than my countryman, and I had to point out that he's not my countryman, I'm English, and so is Paul, and it completely threw him. Bless him. As I say, and moving on to Brandon Cooks, as you say, is there a risk now that there's going to be some people who think, oh, the Rams have got their number 1 receiver, but with the various things that have happened, you've still got Robert Woods, you've still got Cooper Kupp, still got Todd Gurley. Their defense has got a lot better. Is it not going to be being the number 1 wide receiver for this year's Rams isn't as impressive as it would have been for last year's? And if so, is there better value from a fantasy point of view on other players on the roster?
I think the best value is going to be on Cooper Kupp. I think the presumptive thought is that, well, first of all, this lights on fire all of my Josh Reynolds sleeper pieces that I was planning on writing, because I thought that was pretty. I was like, man, I'm smart. Nope, I'm not so smart. But I think that everyone is going to look at Robert Woods' target totals, right? But it was interesting because Cooper Kupp, if you watch the film, I believe that Cooper Kupp and Jared Goff, while Cooper Kupp is an older receiver and not perhaps the red zone threat because he doesn't have the height, the immediate red zone threat after the catch, I think he's better, obviously, than Woods, who's a possession guy. His chemistry with Jared Goff is awesome. Like, they're the same age. They feel each other. I just feel like that rapport is definitely going to increase, and Cooper Kupp is only going to get better next year, where Woods is now, the Rams are going they've gotten Cooks. They're obviously, and they didn't get Cooks in the same time they got Watkins. Remember, because Watkins was signed over the summer, so the time to build rapport was very short. But now they have Cooks, and so McVay is going to want to make him the number 1 receiver. They're going to funnel balls his way, even if he's not ready, right? They're to try to get the reps going so that they can do what we think they're going to do. Again, evolution takes time, but I think those targets, because of what was established previously to Watkins' arrival last year, are not automatically going to go to Woods. I think his target total is going to dip. But Cooper Kupp's ability to, his efficiency and his usage is going to increase. So to me, the value lies there, as obviously, especially in PPR formats.
I mean, the Rams were one of the big criticisms, even though it was one of their strengths. In the playoff game against the Falcons, they were in 11 personnel, so 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, 1 running back, every single offensive snap. So they're going to have, Cooks, Cup, and what's the bugger's name? Woods, Cup, and Cooks. But also the other person who I think should be considered a breakout is Gerald Everett, because from an athletic point of view, he's so much more impressive than Tyler Higbee, bless his soul. And
he's a bad guy. Let's not.
Yeah, that's a very easy person not to root for. Whereas, Gerald Everett, I still get this thing on Facebook. It's this time, on this day, and it came up this week. I wrote lovingly about Gerald Everett this time last year, leading up to the draft, and I was hoping that maybe this year could be a year that he kicked on as well.
I think it could be. I mean, it's telling because the Rams were linked to some veteran tight ends in free agency, so if they were as high on him, then why are they bringing in established talent? Even just for workouts or visits. Obviously, the Rams are seeing a lot of people making a lot of moves, though, and Les Snead he's staking his claim. He's making this happen. So I would be optimistic about Everett, and if we start seeing reports from beat writers during mini camps and OTAs and over the summer, then I'm more willing to buy into it. And obviously, his size is great for a red zone presence. Like Brandon Cooks is not a giant target the way that Everett could be. So I think you've got Kupp and Cooks. Again, I'm not comping them. I don't want the draft nicks to come after me, but there's overlap in their skill sets, whereas Woods is much more of a possession guy. So I think it makes an interesting point bringing in Everett as just like that giant target or a still developing quarterback to lob the ball at, 20 yards out. Sure.
So you talk about draft nicks, Liz, and you've recently introduced us to the top 5 quarterbacks in this year's draft. If you had to pick one to be the most likely to be fantasy relevant as a rookie, do you have one, or do you think it's purely down to if Team A picked person A, it works, or do you think that there's a player there who doesn't matter which team get him, he will be relevant from day one?
I think that whoever Arizona drafts is going to be the most immediately relevant. When you look at the Jets, you've got McCown there. McCown's obviously a bridge. He's McCown is a pretty smart guy. He's playing backup, but he knows his place. He knows he's a bridge quarterback, and he is probably looking for a coaching job, right? Like, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up as a quarterback's coach on the Jets next year, right? Like, I don't know who their quarterback's coach is right now, but like, this seems to be what's put in place for him. And so whether it's Rosen or Darnold that go there, or Allen that go there, I feel like they're really going to allow McCown, who could get hurt week 4, right? Like, it's happened, but they're really going to allow him or try to make him the vet, the I don't know what they be the teacher, I guess, the professorial quarterback. In Cleveland, I am less interested in whichever rookie lands in Cleveland and more interested in Tyrod Taylor's potential next year because, again, Hugh Jackson has said, I'm done with rookies. I ain't doing it. Give me a veteran quarterback to ruin. That's who I'm going to mess with, right? But they've also brought in Jarvis Landry. They've got Josh Gordon. They've got Corey Coleman, David Njoku. Like, they have some weapons there. And if they add Saquon Barkley, there's no effing excuses anymore. And I think Tyrod Taylor, like, let's say Josh Allen, it's probably not going to be Josh Allen, but let's just say Josh Allen goes to Cleveland. How much would you love a quarterback with a giant arm, which is completely antithetical to what Tyrod Taylor does, and he knows it, similarly to what Mahomes did to Alex Smith. And Alex Smith and Tyrod Taylor, I will comp, because those two, I think, have similar skill sets. Tyrod Taylor's super careful. He does not press the ball. All Josh Allen does is throw the ball up with his cannon arm and pray. And so I think if Tyrod Taylor in his head is like, I kind of was pushed out of Buffalo. That was embarrassing. Here's my shot. I've got Josh Gordon. I've got Josh Gordon. And there's this big-armed young kid from Wyoming at my heels. Maybe I should start lobbing the ball because Josh Gordon has a catch radius that is bananas. I can get away with it. He's never had receivers with a catch radius like that in Buffalo. And so if he's able to, I feel like Tyrod Taylor has top 12 potential, and everyone is scared and they don't buy it. I think he is going to, as long as he can stay healthy, it's always the caveat, right? As long as he can stay healthy, he is going to be the man under center for 16 games, assuming he can stay healthy for 16 games. Where's the next place out? The Giants. Eli's going to have his job for a year. This is it, right? Eli's going to do what he's going to do. I'd like to see Josh Rosen go to the Giants, frankly. I like Rosen a lot. I think he comps similarly to Matt Ryan. So I do think, though, that Lamar Jackson could – I have a feeling he's going to go to Arizona. I think that just makes sense. And if you, there are no receiving weapons, right? Larry Fitzgerald is older than me, probably. I haven't looked that up, but I think so. But you will have a healthy David Johnson, and you've got this running quarterback who's an incredible athlete, and the defense is who do you cover? There's going to be some awesome holes. So obviously I think Lamar Jackson is going to be drafted with the hopes that he could be this year's Deshaun Watson. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do think that whoever goes to Arizona, and I'm guessing it's going to be Jackson, is going to be the quarterback, because I'm not afraid of Sam Bradford, and I'm not convinced that his knee is going to stand up to another season, especially behind that offensive line.
You do have to. A rookie then does have to come in, assuming Bradford can't stay healthy. The rookie does have to then come in and beat out Mike Glennon, which is,
it happened last year.
Yeah, when you say, a bridge, well, he's tall enough to be a bridge. If you put him on two sides of a river.
His neck is long enough to be a bridge. You could put his neck across a creek and walk across it. It's like a log. But, I'm not afraid if Mike Glennon. Trubisky was able to beat him out. And I don't know. You've got it's hard to inspire confidence when you have a first-time head coach. I know McCoy is the offensive coordinator, but hasn't he been fired from his last couple gigs? So,
just so everyone knows, I've Googled and Larry Fitzgerald is older than 21, Liz. So you're fine.
Thank you.
Well played, mate.
Thank you.
He's probably not older than us, though, mate. So.
I don't know, mate.
Liz, last question we got for you. This weekend, I believe, you're attending an event with Dr. Jen Walter, the first female NFL coach. There's her, there's our own Phoebe Schechter, who had some time with the Bills last year. With these role models in place, do you think that seeing ladies on the sideline in NFL games as coaches is something that could become more frequent?
Well, you've got Katie Sowers, who's part of Kyle Shanahan's staff. She's a wide receivers coach in San Francisco. Now, they haven't publicized it as much, but she's entering her second year with Kyle Shanahan, and obviously he's a younger, more creative mind. We opened the show talking about the, quote, youth movement that's, I hope, kind of I don't want to say sweeping the NFL, but slowly creeping into the NFL. I do think it's interesting. I think you have Beth Mowins calling plays and doing an excellent job. It was the first woman in history to call an NFL game on a Monday night. That's incredible. But I think moreover than girls playing sports, Jen she made history because she wasn't just the first the first female coach in the NFL. She was also the first woman to play running back in an all-male league for I believe the Texas Revolution. She was the running back there on an all-dude team. But I think it's not, for me, as much about women getting on the field and finding their way. It's also just it's also helpful for women in business to be able to talk sports, to be more well-rounded, if you can't, Frank Reich's daughter, Leah, said something on my friend Melissa Jacobs' podcast, which was, if you can't see it, you can't be it. So whether your goal is to be a ref in the NFL or just to have a talking knowledge of the NFL, because A, it's fun, and B, it'll help you in boardrooms globally, right? Like, worldwide, it is the presumptive thought, right, is that men know about sports. So if you as a woman start to know about sports and can talk about it and have a genuine interest and passion in it, then that's going to help you close deals. That's going to help you make more money. And hopefully that's going to help eventually bridge the wage disparity gap.
I mean, my sister loves cricket, which, very, very, oddly, because, considering the England cricket team is a hard watch. She does, not only does she like watching it, she knows what she's talking about as well. And I do know, though, that she doesn't go out of her way to advertise that she likes it, because she can't be bothered talking to people about it, because in the back of their mind it'll always be, oh, bless her, she's trying.
That's right. That's 100% right. I forget, because I do this for a living, right? So I forget sometimes that, like, I talk to you guys and it's fine. You see me, you're not like, oh, it's a chick trying to talk about football. Ugh, all my man juice feels all threatened and weird. I don't know what to do. But out in the world, I don't know, I'll be at a restaurant or I'll be with my husband and someone, or at an airport. I travel a lot for work, so I'll sit down next to somebody. I'll have a Rams hat on, and some guy will try to, like, oh, the Rams, they're from St. Louis. And I'll say, yeah, but I'll forget, right? I'll forget, and I'll say, like, yeah, Cooper Kupp, man. I mean, he's a PPR machine. How many receptions did he have? Or I can't believe what Wade Phillips has done with this defense. And then all of a sudden, I see their eyes kind of look like they're about to get hit by a tractor, and I can see them negotiating what the hell is going on. It's like that viral video of that little boy who had anesthesia after a dental procedure. And he's like, is this real life? Blah. And then it hits me, and I'm like, oh, I forgot that I wasn't supposed to know about this. Now I'm going to dig in. Watch. This is a true story. Hold on real quick. I know we have to leave. But, I sat on a plane. I flew Southwest, so this was not fancy. A flight from LA to Vegas, which is a quick flight, for the Stopa draft. And I was by myself, and I think my daughter was 5 months old. So I had my breast pump. The boobs were full of, of the milk. I was in full on, I just had a baby mode. And this was last summer. And I sat next to LaVar Ball. I don't know if you know who that is.
I do. I know who that is. Neil may not. But this is about to get fun. Neil, hold on tight, Neil.
So he was sitting, so there's 3 seats, and he was sitting on one side, and one of his buddies, one of his minion, they were all wearing this BBB shirts, like Ball Brothers, Ball and whatever. Yeah. I don't know what the brand. So I'm like, oh, snap. So I walk up, and that's there's no seats left, and you can tell he's like, ugh, I know she's going to sit there. So I'm like, excuse me. And I put my breast pump up above me, and I waddle myself in, and it is hot in this airplane because it's the summer. And he's like, oh, and I was like, sorry, it's only an hour. At least you're not in the middle. And he's like, that's fine. I'm glad that at least a woman is sitting next to me. And I was like, oh, we're going to start here. Okay. And I obviously knew who he was, but he didn't think I knew who he was. And he was like, what are you doing in Vegas by yourself? And I was like, well, I'm going for work, actually. What do you do? I work in sports. You work in sports? And I was like, yeah, but mostly the NFL. That's my only sport. And he was like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I work in sports too. And I was like, oh, what do you do? I have no, and he's like, oh, I'm involved in the NBA. And I was like, oh yeah, the NBA really hasn't been that good since Michael Jordan retired. Also, I'm much more of a Clippers fan because I don't know what the Lakers are doing with this reboot. And he got all sorts of agitated. And then I just kind of kept doing it, little dumb drops the entire time. And then I got off and he was like, well, it was nice talking to you. And I was like, thanks. Can you grab my breast pump? Can you get that for me? Thanks.
Neil, just so you know, LaVar Ball's a dick. Whose son, he's got 3 sons, and he made Venus and Serena Williams' father look like dad of the year. And basically, they all went to UCLA. His first son Lonzo's decent. He plays for the Lakers, hence the Liz jibe, which is fantastic, by the way. His 2 other sons went to UCLA. One of them got arrested in China for stealing stuff, and then they both left UCLA and are now playing in Lithuania, while their dad LaVar talks a lot on American TV shows like Colin Cowherd et al. And tries to make a load of money, and is a prat.
Oh well, saves me googling it.
Exactly. Well, Liz, thank you for your time. Thank you for the anecdote, and thank you for letting us know that LaVar Ball touched your breast pump.
Thank you, guys. It's always a pleasure. I could talk to you for much, much more than 42 minutes. So I appreciate it. Have a wonderful spring, and please either come on the X's and Y's podcast, or I'm happy to come back this summer. My gosh, the draft is coming up, and then we get a month to breathe, and then the machine kicks into full gear. Yeah.
Fantastic, Liz. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.
And that was the brilliant Liz Loza there. Just always a pleasure to speak to, and absolutely using female wiles to annoy men across the planet, which is surely what you should do.
Well, I mean, from what from what you told me, and from what I've learned since, if you've got any tool to annoy someone like LaVar Ball, the only thing I do know about LaVar Ball, actually, I will say quickly, is I do know that when people have been angry with him, they have tweeted LaVar Burton, who was Geordie LaForge in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and as with anyone who gets like confused for someone who's been an arsehole, he usually handles it with great good humour. It's not like the poor sod who owns the Twitter handle @David Warner, who the other week, obviously, on his Twitter bio, he does say, "I'm not the Aussie bloke."
In that sense, don't like before we get to Andrew, wouldn't you just change your Twitter name?
Well, I'd just say to the actual David Warner, look, $5,000, it's yours.
That's what I'm saying, right? Let's do business here, because for some reason I'm getting pelters because you're a cheat.
I mean, it's that woman whose Twitter account is the Ashes.
Yeah,
but it's got nothing to do with cricket. Sell it, sell it.
Exactly. Well, Neil, we haven't finished yet, and we're going to speak to Andrew Brandt. And when I say we're going to speak to Andrew Brandt, you're going to speak to Andrew Brandt, because we've already done this, and I wasn't there because I was at the fair, because that's how I roll. But you're going to talk to Andrew about all things trades, and then why Andrew is the king of Philadelphia.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, as I say, we are talking from the future. Not exciting happened.
Okay, fantastic.
Delighted to be joined now, once again, by Andrew Brandt. You can find him writing at the MMQB, The Athletic, and the Business of Sports podcast. You can follow him on Twitter @Andrew Brandt. Andrew, thanks for joining us once again.
Always happy to join you, Neil. Good to talk again.
We'll get straight into it. Obviously, this time of year is pretty much your wheelhouse. The NFL seems, of late, to have gone trade crazy in a way that it hasn't in the past. And unusually, most of the trades aren't what you'd call in the past ham sandwich trades. These seem to be for quite big name players. Can you offer any thoughts as to why teams are suddenly more ready to make moves like this? And do you think it may be linked with a feeling with teams, especially ones with young quarterbacks, that they're trying to maximise the amount of time they have before they have to pay that quarterback, so they're surrounding them with talent before then?
Yeah, it's a great question, and you're absolutely right. I don't think we've seen this certainly in my time in the NFL, 10 years between 99 and 2009, and in the past 9 years, I don't think we've seen an offseason like this. Not so much for the volume of trades, because as you mentioned, there have always been trades, but they've usually been, as I called them, ham sandwich trades for players that are going to be cut, and they're just sort of thrown out there so the team can get something. There have been a few of those this year. I know Cody Kessler from the Browns to the Jaguars for a 2019 conditional 7th. There it is. That's your ham sandwich trade, and there are a lot of those. But, as you mentioned, you go down the list. Jason Pierre-Paul, Aqib Talib, Alec Ogletree, Robert Quinn, Brandon Cooks now, Marcus Peters. I mean, these are big names that are being moved. And I think there's no one reason. I have a few reasons. Number one, I think teams have become better at cap management. So cap management in order to, A, take on big salaries of high salary players. Michael Bennett's another one. And B, being able to handle the dead money, the cap consequences of trading a big name player who you've got unamortized signing bonus proration, you're going to count a lot on the cap. I mentioned Jason Pierre-Paul. Not only does Tampa Bay take on $40 million in future salaries, but the Giants take on $15 million in dead cap money for a player that's going to be playing for Tampa Bay. Now, what that means is those teams have done well in the cap management business to allow them to make that trade. In the past, maybe they couldn't have. And now I think that's a big reason. Teams, not all of them, but a good number of them have become better at cap management. There's more cap room to play with. That's one reason. The second reason is kind of an inverse of that, which is teams are really valuing draft picks, even mid-round draft picks, because of the cap control they give you, 4-year contracts at low numbers. They'd rather go that way than have a Jason Pierre-Paul, a Michael Bennett, a Robert Quinn that are making $10 million and not giving the value they think they should be giving with that kind of number. So this incredible devaluation of veterans and increased valuation of draft picks. And then the third reason is it's a copycat league. Howie Roseman, I talked to you today from suburban Philadelphia, and I'm literally about a block away from Howie Roseman's home. And he won the Super Bowl being a very active trader, and still is. So I think there is a copycat mentality to these trades. The Eagles were the best team in the league, and they're a big trading team. So we'll see what happens. Everyone else is following suit.
There's a situation. It came today. Kevin Hogan, one of the multitude of quarterbacks on the Browns roster, has asked for and been given permission to seek a trade. Now, we usually see when teams, it comes out that teams are shopping a particular player. What that usually means is that player's not going to get traded because eventually they're going to get cut. What's the situation like, from your experience, the other side of the coin? If this is a player who's basically said, I don't want to be here anymore, I want to go somewhere else. What if no one wants to trade for Kevin Hogan? I mean, how easy is it for that type of player to then, go back to the team that essentially he wanted out from?
I think that's going to be a problem. In other words, I think that they're going to look for it. We go back to what we've mentioned a couple times, this sort of ham sandwich trade that they traded Kessler already for, this kind of low-round pick in 2019 or 20. And if they can get it, they will. And if they can't, they'll release him. Now, what we don't know is how badly the Browns want to keep him. Now, we know they've got Tyrod Taylor. And I think they signed Drew Stanton. And, of course, they're going to take a quarterback with the first or fourth pick in the draft. So that doesn't leave any room for Hogan. So you would think that Hogan is either going to be traded for whatever they can get or released, whether it comes from his side or the Browns side, but he doesn't have a future there.
We're talking again about teams with, one of the big traders, the Los Angeles Rams. Obviously, the players they're bringing in, a lot of them have got a track record of, proven production in the NFL. Obviously, the likes of Ndamukong Suh, and to an extent, Brandon Cooks. Is there not a problem with this type of player? I'd say, this is pure speculation from your part and mine, obviously, is that they do seem to have brought in players who, let's say, they don't seem to have a track record of staying in one place for too long. And, it just seems like it's like, whenever you see a beautiful woman by herself, someone's already fed up with her. They've got an awful lot of those types of players. Now, do you think that could have an adverse effect on a young team with a young head coach if things start slowly in 2018?
Yeah, and I've remarked on Twitter about this and gotten a lot of mostly agreeable comments, but some disagreeable ones, I guess, as everything on Twitter. To me, you really reduce your margin for error. You've raised expectations, bringing in a lot of one-year guys that are maybe towards the end of their career and really looking to juice up the team. And that's great if things go swimmingly. But what if things don't? And what does it mean if things don't? I don't know. It doesn't have to mean 3 losses in a row. It could mean 1 loss in a row. It could mean some friction in the locker room, even if you're winning. So, listen, I don't know Ndamukong Suh or Marcus Peters or Aqib Talib. Brandon Cooks, I think, was a financial thing. I can get to that in a minute with the Patriots. But I think you set yourself up like, wow. You can't just say, well, we're the Rams, we have Wade Phillips, we're a cool place to be, it'll work out. I guess you got to wonder, what's the plan? What's the plan to sort of merge all these people together rather than just say, it'll work? And I just think you set yourself up, and on the field, expectations have certainly been raised. So the problem with a team that's quote-unquote going for it is when they don't quote-unquote get it. Then what happens? And the last thing about the Rams is all these guys are in the last year of their contracts, but they better not address any of them because they've got to address Aaron Donald and Todd Gurley before they would address new people to their team. So I'm sure they're aware of that, but you talk about a real combustible situation is if they do contracts for any of those guys before they do guys who've been there for years.
And there's one 2-word term that obviously most Philadelphia Eagles fans will think of when we see what the Rams are doing, and obviously, for footballing sense, we hope it doesn't happen. But dream team, so it's as I say, it looked great on paper, but it's as I say, it's just you can never really tell, can you?
Right, you can't tell. And listen, as everyone's noting, the NFC is stacked, and I'm from my time in Green Bay. I'm obviously biased, but I think with Aaron coming back, assuming his health. With Rodgers, I think the Packers are right there. Obviously, the Eagles are right there. Obviously, the Vikings are right there. Obviously, the Saints are right there. And then we bring in the Rams, and now, you've got a logjam of a lot of really good teams. So it's not like anyone's saying after all these moves, the Rams are the favorite. But certainly they're up there.
You've spoken in the past, usually with regards to fully guaranteed contracts, that the NFL, one thing they really, really don't want to do is set precedents, because if they do it once, they'll have to do it again. If we flip up to the players' side, it seems every year we get at least one player who won't play until he signs a new deal and things like that, and ultimately they always seem to play. Do you think, as an agent, would you ever advise a player maybe to just say, no, do not turn up, do not play? And then maybe other teams will, feel more incentivised to, come to the table with an agreeable deal.
Well, as you know, I was an agent for many years, and I was on the team side many years. And I guess my answer to that question is no, having been on both sides. If my only experience was on the agent side, I guess I would say, yeah, force their hand, don't show up, use the leverage that you have. But having been on the team side, I can say, that won't work. I can say it. So I know it won't work. Listen, I just mentioned Aaron Donald, maybe the best non-quarterback in the league. He didn't get a deal done after holding out last year. So he walks in with his tail between his legs, and he's back on his contract, and he's playing. I just don't think it ever works. And this idea that Odell Beckham, at one point there was a rumor that he wouldn't set his foot on the field without a new contract. I say good luck with that. What's your leverage? I don't get it. To me, football is unlike these other sports because there's so many players. It's hard to say that you have any real leverage unless you're a franchise quarterback. Everyone is expendable, in my opinion, unless, we're talking about 10, 12 players in the league. So I don't think Odell Beckham will miss any real time. We've heard Le'Veon Bell, I'm not going to play on a franchise tag. He said that last year. He'll say it again this year. I don't give it one iota of credence. So that's where we are.
And with regards to free agents, another topic we've spoken of in the past is the spending floor. So not, the cap space, but the amount of cap space that teams have to spend. With your knowledge, again, of both sides and seeing how some teams are blatantly circumventing, if not the rules, then certainly the spirit of this arrangement, could you envisage a situation where the ability to carry over cap space could be removed? Or, again, is this another topic that if you bring it up in the CBA, the NFL will be like, okay, we'll do that, but you lose this instead?
Yeah, listen, we don't need to get into the long explanation here. I really think it's the biggest flaw of the CBA, more than any of the other things people talk about, that the floor is based on the actual cap. This year in the NFL, the actual cap is $177 million. Meanwhile, teams like Cleveland, San Francisco, Jacksonville, Tennessee have real caps, in other words, rolled over adjusted caps, in the $200, $220, $240 million range. And the spending minimums are based on the actual cap. So imagine that. Imagine you only have to spend based on 177, lower than that, but you're at 220. So instead of 89%, you only have a requirement to spend like 70%. I think it's unfair. I think it's should be addressed. And in terms of what happens in the next CBA, if they address that, they've got to figure out their priorities. Is that their priority? Is franchise tag their priority? Is commissioner power their priority? Is safety their priority? Last time it turned out to be safety and less time in the off season, more so than economics. I just got to see where they're going to lie, where they're going to come out this time.
It just seems that, call me cynical, but the team that's at the start of this off season that had the least amount of cap space won the Super Bowl, whereas the team with the most cap space went 0-16. Now, obviously, being cynical, I might say that maybe one team is literally pushing it to the limit to try and win, whereas the other team is thinking a bit like, no, we're okay. We'll save the money. We're okay.
What's interesting, Neil, is I don't know if it transfers to football as well as other sports, but we're at a time in sports where my father's generation would never even dream that this would be happening. Where, and you could put the Browns in this class with the 76ers of the NBA over the past few years, and the Houston Astros of the MLB over the past few years. Tearing it down, and they're okay with it. The Browns are tearing it down, starting over, and they're okay with it. And they hope that their bounty of draft picks and young players will turn out to be something special, even though they passed on Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson, which puts them back even more. But we'll see. I just think it's really interesting that you talk about these teams hoarding cap room. Yeah, and they're doing poorly. So what's going to happen? Listen, the word tanking is thrown around a lot. It's become not a pejorative word. It's become a way of doing business in all sports now that I don't know what commissioners can do about them. Because is a commissioner going to go in and tell your general manager, no, you have to buy veterans? No. They're going to let you build the team the way you want to build it, and more teams are going young and cheap with the hope that when they're ready, they'll have the money and the resources to be the best.
See, I did think of something like that, in regards of, the NFL isn't going to come and tell them, you have to spend this much, you have to, on this amount of player. Because one thought I had, and, it's one of those that it sounded great, when I initially had it, but, as I thought more and more about it, I just didn't think it was enforceable, would be if a team was, we'll take the Browns, we'll pick on the Browns, everyone else seems to do, if they're this much above, the real floor, as it were, well, fine, you've got all this money, we're going to take a draft pick off you because you're going to have to spend it on a free agent instead. But again, that's a bit like it's restricting, you're putting too many restrictions on a team, I would think, if you tried to do something like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I teach sports law. There was a case in the 1970s, Charles Finley versus Bowie Kuhn, the commissioner, where he basically sold off his best players on the Oakland A's baseball team, and the commissioner stepped in and voided the trades. I think that could never happen today. Never. It's not like Adam Silver would step in when the 76ers, were not signing any name players. It just doesn't happen now. So the Browns are what they are. We'll see if they get better. But it's really interesting to me because people talk about the Browns a lot, like you just said. I don't think there's any bad team in the NFL that gets talked about as much as the Browns. And maybe from their viewpoint, that's a good thing.
Last question for you, Andrew. Obviously, very, very grateful for your time. Obviously, you're a very busy man. But in the past, I've been accused, by the way, of turning this podcast into an Eagles show, but I make no apologies for it. They won the Super Bowl. In the past, you've done some consulting with the Eagles. You're a professor at Villanova. Both these teams have got their hands on some silverware in 2018. So obviously, you're something of a lucky charm. Is there any chance you could maybe get yourself a gig with the England cricket team or Sheffield Wednesday Football Club in the near future? Just for a few weeks.
Yeah, well, you can give my number. I think I don't know where to start. When I was in Green Bay. And I decided I wanted a different life from working for an NFL team. My wife got to pick the place because I had moved her to rural Wisconsin in central U.S. for 9 years, and she chose to come back to her home, which was in Villanova, Pennsylvania. And I was here for a year or so, trying to do my different things with media, with academia, and it's interesting because Joe Banner, who ran the Eagles, was moving Howie Roseman from the cap contract area to the personnel area. And they needed someone to sort of be a stopgap while they train other people to do the contracts. So I came in there. I came in for a couple years. But I told Joe and I told Howie, I don't want a job. I don't want to work for a team anymore. But I'll help you. I'll do your contracts, and I'll help with your salary cap planning. So a couple of years I did do that. And, that was with Andy Reid. Now it's all changed over there, but still the Howie's there, and it's set of the same system. But, yeah, I'm happy for them. And as you know, I know Doug Peterson so well from his days at the Packers. Great to see him do well. He was our backup quarterback. He was our coach on the field. He was Brett Favre's best friend, his counselor. He's the guy we called when Brett's father died because we couldn't reach Brett. We found Doug, who was with him. It was great to see the success of that team. And then indulge me for a minute about Villanova because I just came back, as we talked today, from the parade. And I've gotten to know in my running a sports management, sports business department there, I've gotten to work a lot with athletics and Coach Jay Wright. And, it sounds cliche, but he really preaches this stay humble, stay hungry, and there's teamwork, and these guys love each other, all the things you love to see in sports happening right there. So proud to be associated with both. Yeah, maybe if it proves that if I help out another team and they win, then maybe I've got something. I can package it, go to Vegas.
That's it. Gun for hire. Well, Andrew, as always, been great talking to you. Thank you very much for your time.
Neil, always a pleasure.
Well, that's the show. It's big thank you to Liz Loza and, of course, Andrew Brandt, who you've just heard from there. If you want to follow us, obviously we're at waxing_lyrical. If you want the tweets with the bad spelling, that's from Mainsy. I'm at ndutton13. Mainsy is at Mainsy7, MAINZEY 7, just a number. Great show. Obviously, we'll speak to more people next week, and in the weeks to come, as we come closer to the draft and the actual NFL season, then we'll go again. But until then, as my partner in crime would like to say, these top guys are out.